You are watching. Pause. We pause for a second or two. How do we keep life coherent when so much is changing? This is episode 212. Many loose ends. Yesterday, it was announced that the leaders of the European Union would not be invited to the major negotiations going on right now. The major negotiations concerning the state of the world. And this piece of news took many by surprise. And the mood today, perhaps especially in Europe, is confused. So these discussions now that are going to take place in Saudi Arabia is about, to a great extent, the situation in Europe. But representatives from the European Union are not invited to these talks. And what we are doing today, in today's episode, is not to take a stand whether this outcome is desirable or not. What we're doing today is simply pausing and acknowledging how it feels for common people today, when these discussions will happen. But for the common man in Europe, there are many loose ends. So, the title of today's episode is, as we just said, Many Loose Ends. And the situation of today's episode, the situation we are in right now, is our confused situation. We are confused right now. confusion will always be there. Confusion is not something we will be rid of. And confusion is not something we want to be rid of. We need confusion. However, there's a difference between confusion and confusion. So the goal of our confused situation, the Polaroid you're seeing there, is our confused goal structure. Confusion is sort of like our raw material, our unpolished diamond, if you will. So we need confusion because in confusion is our way forward. In confusion is our path to grow. If we had no confusion, we would stagnate and die. However, with confusion, we will have raw material and we will have the possibility of building something. And structure, our goal for whenever we are confused, is about to pause for a second or two and allow for confusion, our very personal, contextual confusion. Allow for it to sort of sort itself out, find its place. Go from diffuse to more specific. It's kind of like when we are inside in the light and we go outside in the darkness. And just when we go out, our eyes are not used to the darkness, so we will see nothing. Just confusion, just pitch black. And then we pause for a second or two and allow for our eyes to get used to the absence of light. And that's when slowly, sometimes it's really slow, slowly we will start discerning some shapes, and then we will be able to make our steps. And structure, our goal structure, will sort of start to become logical. Half and half on its own and by our design. Sort of this both at the same time. So what remains to be seen now in the situation in the world politically, but also in Europe. What remains to be seen now is Because right now, everybody is in the dark. Everybody is confused. We have just stepped out of the light, which was what we knew to be true before. We have stepped outside of what we knew and into something unknown. And now it's all pitch black for us. And you and me right now are pausing and just allowing for our eye of discernment to start seeing these shapes in the dark. Having faith in that our sight will come back. Confusion will find its structure, our goal, structure for our confusion. And it remains to be seen how different leaders, how different groups in Europe and the world at large, how they now handle this confusion, this pitch blackness. Some will panic and rush on ahead, even though they're seeing nothing. Make blind decisions. And others will perhaps a fair way to describe it would be to become somewhat paralyzed. Not really pausing, because pausing has this active feel to it, this active energy. More paralyzed is more to freeze and to be incapacitated to do anything at all. The darkness is just so scary, so you just freeze. Some people will react like that. And then we have the ones who pause, like you and I are doing now. We pause and know that life is supposed to feel confusing right now. Right now, we have stepped outside of what we have known, and now we have a bunch of raw materials. It's supposed to feel confusing right now. For new structure to be built, it first needs to feel just enigmatic, like we don't know anything. That's how it must be. That's how it is today. And we pause. And maybe you're seeing on the table over there, behind the apple, you see a compass. So we pause, and slowly as the shapes start to take shape for our eye of discernment, we can make use of our compass and start taking few steps. In one way, it's quite unsatisfying. It's not really a quick fix. It's not very charismatic. It's not very gratifying. It's quite boring and painful to bear the confusion, to just keep a cool head and just stand there in the dark. That is painful. It is, however, much less painful than rushing ahead, even though you don't know where to place your feet and you will hurt yourself. It's much less painful than that. That's one reason to pause. Not the only one, but one of them. It also comes down to that, yes, we have stepped outside now of something that we have known for a long time. This sort of structure we have known, this sort of conventional truths of how the world works, how our society and geography works. So now it can also be, we can also think that we need to leave behind everything, like clean. That just because we're out now in the dark and it's confusing, that none of what has been is no longer important. And I'm not sure that must be the case, really. I think there must be a lot of things that can be sort of salvaged, or that we don't need to abandon everything just 100% just because it's very confusing in this moment. So now, while we still have not grown used to this new confusion, I don't know if I see the harm really in looking a bit behind our shoulder and what did we come from? Maybe read up a bit about things that have been recently and for always. Study up and just also allow ourselves to be inspired by things that have been, in what we want to build, what kind of structure we want to build for our confusion. And of course, we can make use of the 3 specific skills for our confused situation. They are not here right now on the board. The 3 specific skills are in the pause framework of emotional skills, but they are useful as well in jointly creating this structure for our confusion. So that is one thing we might look at as well. That's it for today. Thank you.